and welcome to another video. So for today's video, I decided I'm going to be reading a really popular book talk slash booktube book, The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. I've been seeing this book literally everywhere. Like, I've seen Books with Chloe just completely obsess over it and read it for a second time. I've seen it all over Book Talk. I've seen it just literally everywhere. I've also seen it compared to The Hating Game by Sally Thorne a lot on Goodreads, and I loved that book. So I decided it's time to read it. So this is a fake dating enemies to lovers book that takes place in a workplace, and I believe they go to Spain for somebody's wedding. That's really all I know about it. I did try to read it a couple months ago and I got maybe like 8 pages in, but I really wasn't feeling it. I wasn't in the right headspace and I just was kind of in a reading slump, honestly. So I stopped reading it, put it down, and now I'm gonna be picking it back up and hopefully reading it quickly. But yeah, I haven't actually started this book yet, so I guess I'll see you with my first update. All right, so I'm on chapter 12, which is like 40% of the way through the book. 41% to be exact. I have actually already filmed an update, but it was really chaotic, so we're gonna try again. My initial thoughts is that I did not like the way the book was started. I thought that the initial conversation was really awkward and drawn out, and it had a lot of repetition, and it kind of put these characters in a light that was not very favorable, in my opinion. I found Catalina to be very annoying, and I found Aaron to be kind of just like out of touch by not really, taking the hint that she's saying no over and over and over again, by like not responding to him, pretending that he doesn't exist. Like, take the hint, bro. Yeah, and Catalina is just like very childish throughout this whole beginning conversation, with the whole pretending that he's not there and like talking to her friend as if she's like playing a game of telephone or something, and it's chaotic and I did not enjoy it. And reading the first chapter, I kind of remembered why I stopped reading this book the first time. So moving on from that, I made it a lot further than the first chapter. I'm 40% of the way through, so I have a lot more thoughts on other things that are happening. So basically the premise of this book is Catalina's sister is getting married, and Catalina's ex-boyfriend is the best man or something, and he's like already engaged to somebody else, and so she wants to show him up by bringing her own new boyfriend, but she doesn't have a new boyfriend, so she has to find somebody to fill the role and be her date and pretend to be her boyfriend. So it's like a fake dating situation. Add on top of that an enemies to lovers, because in the first conversation of the book, Aaron is saying that he will be her date, and we get this implication that they're not friends, they're kind of enemies, but like nothing is really explained why. We're getting a whole lot of telling and not showing. So Catalina is like, why would you want to be my date? Like, you hate me. But we don't see that he hates her. So here's some examples. Throughout like the whole first whatever of the book, how much I read, Aaron is very kind and sweet and generous, and he pays attention to Catalina, and he knows like what she likes and what she prefers, and he kind of caters to those preferences like a nice person. Although he does get borderline stalker like because like there are some things that he says like, oh, don't you like this? And she's like, yeah, how did you know? And he's like, oh, well, I overheard you telling blah, blah, blah that you like this like a million times, or I heard you complaining about this a million times. Catalina never directly told him these things that she prefers, and he just got this information by listening to her talking to other people, which I think is kind of creepy, honestly. Kind of stalker-like. There's a time later on where he's giving her a ride home, and she's like, how did you know I lived over here? Like, I mean, he didn't know the exact street she lived on, but he knew like the area she lived in. And he's like, oh, because I heard you complaining about the commute every single day or something like that. Creepy. Anyways, roll all the way back to him being sweet and kind. He doesn't really say anything untoward towards her. And the whole time she's just suspicious about this. Like, why would you do this? We're enemies. Like, I don't understand why, like, what would you get out of this? But we don't ever see him being mean. It's just, okay. Catalina gives me that vibe of like that girl or that kid, whatever, that like makes up all these rules for this game that you didn't even know you were playing, and like nobody knows the rules of the game except for her, and nobody really knows how to play except for her. Like, Catalina's making up all these scenarios and stuff, and it seems to be that she's making up this enemy relationship with Aaron. Like, it does not make sense to me. I understand why she doesn't like him. I mean, like, not really. So she said that she's holding this grudge from like 2 years ago of an offhand comment he said to somebody else about her, and that's why she's holding this grudge and says that they're enemies and stuff, which is ridiculous. I don't like Catalina. She's very childish and she makes it very difficult to continue getting through the book. Honestly, I am reading it for Aaron. I like him as a character. I think he's a kind person. I want to see where he's going with this. Although I think he makes a lot of stupid decisions, like why is he still trying to help Catalina if she's just constantly rude to him and like acts like a child? I don't know. There's some other problems I'm having with this book. One of the biggest problems I'm having is like this weird height distance between the two characters. So Catalina is, I think she said 5'3", but 5'4" on a good day, whatever that means. I'm 5'4" flat, just like for comparison. She's constantly talking about how short she is and how little and stuff. Like, girl, the world from this view is not that crazy. Like, we're not living on the short life. There's girls a lot shorter than us that are struggling a lot more than we are. And then she talks about Aaron and how tall he is and how much of a mountain of man he is. How tall is this man? Because for me, as a 5'4" person, the way that I see the average man is like neck to chin height. If I look straight ahead, I'm seeing average height men's chin to neck. Like, okay, so my husband is like 6'0", 6'1" or something, and that's right where I see neck to chin, like right here. That's my line of sight. And she's talking about looking right at his chest. How tall is this man where her eyesight is nipple height? He's got to be like at least 6'7", maybe even 7 feet tall. Because there's like a whole like foot difference between like, whatever, it's not even that serious. Moving on, there's also a lot of similarities between this book and The Hating Game. Obviously, I don't know everything. I'm only 40% of the way through the book, but the similarities are blaringly obvious. And like the way that the book is introduced and the characters are introduced, you're kind of expected to know that these two characters hate each other because we're not really told, we're not shown. We're like kind of told, but we're not shown how they hate each other and how they interact with each other. We only ever see Aaron being sweet and nice. I guess sweet is a little bit of a stretch, but civil and polite and not like a person who hates her. And it's almost like this author expected you to read The Hating Game first and to be like, yeah, I want that situation, that scenario, but in my book. So like, know that these two characters hate each other because we're basing it off of that book. I don't know, I could be wrong, could be unfounded, but like, it's got that feel. Also just like small little things like Aaron giving her a ride home, or like Aaron refusing to call her Lena and only calling her Catalina. Okay, one more complaint and then I'm done with this update. I'm having a real hard time with the writing style. So every single conversation seems to be drawn out and repetitive. And there are these like long pauses that Lena takes to kind of like think about it and have this like internal monologue, but they're actually happening in real time. The person that she's talking to is like, are you paying attention? Are you still here? Did you hear me? And this happens multiple times with multiple different characters in the same conversation. I don't really understand why that is because it makes her seem more aloof and more annoying, honestly. But also like the way that some of these conversations are happening, it's like they have the initial formula of the conversation and then they redo the formula in a slightly different way, and then she has a pause and she thinks about it, internal monologue, and then there's like a third iteration of this formula with different words, and it's just, there's no reason for this book to be 400 pages long. Like, if you cut down these conversations and stopped the repetitive nonsense, this would be like 200 pages long. Long story short, I'm not having a fun time. All right, so I'm somewhere towards the end of chapter 16 and I'm gonna be DNFing this. I took a couple days off of listening to it and reading it and just kind of giving my brain time to rest from this really annoying set of characters and this situation I found myself in of reading this book. And I was just editing the beginning of this video and just remembering how much I hated it, and I don't want to put myself through the other 50% of this book. No, thank you. So besides just being nitpicky, the really big things that are causing me to stop reading this book are Catalina being one of the most annoying female protagonists I've ever read in my entire existence, and I've read the selection. Number 2 is Aaron not really fulfilling his role of being the enemy to lover because he never started off as being an enemy, so when he gets to be lover, it doesn't make any sense because he was kind of nice to her the whole time. So it makes Lena just seem kind of crazy, and it doesn't fulfill the enemies to lovers trope. So take that out of there. Number 3, the awful writing with the awful pacing and very repetitive dialogue and phrases. Without over exaggerating, the term ocean eyes, blue eyes, some variation of that happened 1,342 many times, and that's not acceptable. On top of very repetitive dialogue with just the same things happening in the beginning of the conversation as the end of the conversation, and just really annoying phrases that really grind my gears, like something caused me to think this, or something caused me to do that, like a tap on my shoulder caused me to turn around, or the sound of footsteps alerted me that he was approaching, or something like that. I mean, these aren't direct quotes from this book, they're just the style of phrases that really annoy me, and I've seen those in other books. And the pacing, like we're halfway through the book, we're at the wedding, things are happening. What are the other 200 pages for? Like, they're not needed. I thought the whole point of this book was to get to the wedding and fool her family that she has a new boyfriend. So why are there 200 pages after the wedding? Unless the wedding's gonna take another 100 pages, and if so, I'm still not interested. The pacing is too slow. I don't want it. No, thank you. Like, there's so many events happening that feel like almost copy and pasted from other books that I'm not really interested in seeing where this book goes and how many other books it could rip off. Like, no, thank you. I'm not interested. So this is a very controversial opinion of the book, I believe, because so many people that read this book absolutely loved it. And I am going to give it 1 star because I did not finish the book. I couldn't finish reading it without going insane. So 1 star, I would not recommend it to people. I'm going to recommend The Hating Game because I loved that. And I know I'm in like the 1% of people that did not like this. I know that. So I just want to say I'm sorry if I was really harsh in this, and I did not mean to offend anybody with my opinions. They're purely my opinions. I did not enjoy it. Everybody's going to experience books differently. So let me know in the comments why you liked it and what some of the things that I just didn't see or were too blinded by my hatred of Catalina to really appreciate in this book. And that's going to be it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye! Tell me,